This is what I wish I had understood about women before they broke me, before I lost myself. Most men are not weak, they're just uninformed. They walk into relationships without understanding female nature, without a grasp on emotional control, and without any idea of what relationship power really means. And the worst part? They think they're doing everything right, until it's too late. Today, we flip the script. You're not just here to hear it, you're here to finally see it. If this message speaks to something inside you, something that's been ignored or silenced, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this with a brother who needs to hear it too. It helps more than you imagine. Let's dive into the first brutal truth every man must face if he wants to take back his masculine identity. The blind spot that keeps men powerless. Most men don't realize they're walking into emotional war zones, completely unarmed. They don't lack love, they lack knowledge. You can be kind, generous, loyal, but without understanding female nature, none of it will protect your heart. And no one teaches you this, not your father, not school, not even experience, because most experiences come too late. This isn't about blaming women, it's about waking men up to the invisible patterns that cost them their self-worth and peace, patterns no one warns you about, until you're already bleeding emotionally. Here's the part that stings. She didn't leave because you weren't good enough. She left because you didn't understand how attraction dynamics work. That fact alone has crushed men far more capable than you think. She still loved you, but love doesn't override nature. Female behavior follows instincts, not logic. And if you fail to grasp those instincts, you'll keep replaying the same heartbreak in different bodies. You think you were betrayed. But what really happened was this. You violated rules you didn't know existed. Let's be brutally honest. She tests you. She doesn't always know she's doing it, but she does. Female testing is real. It's subtle, emotional, and constant. She watches how you react when she withdraws affection, questions your decisions, flirts in front of you by accident. And every time you fold, explain, overreact, or beg, you lose relationship power. Not because you're weak, but because you're uninformed. Men don't lose women by being bad guys. They lose them by lacking emotional discipline in moments that matter. This isn't about becoming manipulative or playing games, it's about reclaiming your frame. If you've never heard of frame control, let me break it down. It's the silent authority you carry that either makes her feel safe or makes her test you relentlessly. Think of it as the gravity around your presence. If it's weak, everything spins out. If it's strong, she orbits naturally. Masculine presence isn't about dominating, it's about anchoring. Without that, every conversation becomes a negotiation. And she starts losing respect before either of you notices. So why doesn't anyone tell you this sooner? Because most men are ashamed to admit they're confused by women. They'd rather suffer in silence than question what they've been taught. And women won't spell it out for you either, because they're wired to feel truth, not teach it. That's why understanding psychological triggers matters. You don't need to read her mind, but you better learn what moves her soul and what turns her cold. Attraction isn't random, it responds to patterns. And patterns can be learned. Let me ask you this. Have you ever tried harder, loved deeper, and still watched her slip away? That confusion, that frustration, it cracks a man's core. You start questioning your masculine identity, doubting your own worth, wondering if you'll ever get it right. The problem isn't effort, it's direction. You've been taught to chase emotional closeness instead of mastering emotional detachment. Women are drawn to men who feel deeply, but remain unmoved by chaos. That balance is rare, and that's what creates obsession. Pause for a moment and imagine this. You're in a relationship. Things are going well, but something starts to shift. She pulls away emotionally. You panic. You start proving, pleasing, fixing. The more you try, the colder she gets. You feel powerless. Now here's the truth. That cycle isn't personal, it's biological. Without clear boundaries, you're signaling weakness, and she doesn't want to lead. She wants to follow. But she'll only follow a man who leads with inner strength, not neediness. That distinction changes everything. Here's where most men fall flat. They think saying yes to everything is love. But to her, it's just noise. You see, strategic silence can sometimes be louder than words. When you speak less and observe more, you start seeing what she's really reacting to. Women aren't attracted to constant agreement. They're pulled toward mystery, depth, and a man who doesn't rush to prove himself. If you're always available, always explaining, you kill the sexual polarity that keeps desire alive. Silence has weight. Learn to use it. One of the biggest lessons David Buss points out is this. Evolution designed men and women for different mating strategies. You want loyalty? She wants emotional validation, but on her terms. She's reading your behavior constantly, not your words. If your actions scream insecurity, no amount of compliments will fix it. That's why emotional control is your weapon, not coldness, control. The ability to feel everything and still choose your response. That's power, that's leadership. That's what makes her respect you. even when she's mad at you. Let's make this real. Jake was a guy who thought love meant sacrifice. He gave her everything, time, energy, even money. He stopped seeing his friends, his hobbies, his male purpose. He made her his entire world. At first she was flattered, then she got bored, then she left. Jake didn't lose her because he lacked love. He lost her because he gave up his masculine energy. After the breakup, he started training, reading, rebuilding his mission. Months later, she came back, but he didn't need her anymore. That story isn't rare. You probably know a Jake. You may be Jake. But here's the twist. This isn't about revenge or making her chase you again. It's about becoming someone who doesn't lose himself in love. Someone who owns his time, his space, his path. Women don't respect men who orbit them. They respect men who move with purpose. The moment you restore your frame control, the games stop. The mood swings fade. She starts adjusting to you, and that shift is permanent. What's wild is how subtle this all looks on the surface. She won't say, "You're too soft now." She'll just start sighing more, criticizing lightly, canceling plans, testing your emotional grip. And every time you give her a bigger piece of you, she feels less attracted. That's the paradox. She wants your heart, but only if it's behind a locked door. Not impossible to reach, but not cheap. Hypergamy doesn't mean she's evil. It means she's wired to search upward. Be the man she doesn't outgrow. You don't build this overnight, but you can start today. First, reclaim your mornings. No woman, no phone, just you, breathwork, lifting, reading something that fortifies your stoic mindset. Second, stop oversharing. Mystery creates tension. Share when it matters, not just to connect. Third, enforce micro boundaries. If she's late, don't pretend it's fine. If she crosses a line, address it calmly. Women follow structure. They don't want to create it. Be the man who brings clarity, not chaos. That alone shifts the energy instantly. There's a reason she falls for the guy who doesn't chase. The one who seems focused, slightly distant, but present. That man isn't cold, he just has emotional detachment. Not because he's numb, but because his world doesn't revolve around her reaction. He feels, but he doesn't flinch. That calm intensity draws her in. Think of masculine presence like fire contained in steel, warm, alive, but solid. The moment you break that structure and become fluid, you lose her respect. And once that's gone, desire follows. What she's craving isn't perfection, it's polarity, that electric charge between masculine and feminine. And it only exists when you're not bending to her moods, when you carry inner strength through conflict. When you say no without fear, when your tone stays calm even when she's fiery. That's the tension that builds attraction. Without it, the relationship feels emotionally flat. You stop being the challenge and start becoming background noise. Don't be the man who avoids conflict. Be the one who holds his ground without losing his soul. And here's the brutal truth. She's watching even when she acts like she's not. Your tone, your pace, your words. How you handle other people, whether you hesitate. All of it feeds her female behavior radar. You think the little things don't matter, but they do. They tell her who you really are. And if what she senses is insecurity masked as affection, the attraction dies silently. This isn't paranoia, it's precision. Women respond to energy, not effort. And the right energy comes from alignment, not approval seeking. And here, a quick pause. If you're starting to see the patterns you've been missing all along, if this content is opening your eyes to truths no one told you but you always felt, then don't wait. Hit that like button now and subscribe. Every second you spend without this awareness is a second you're gambling with your relationship power. And trust me, we're just warming up. What's coming next will change how you see everything about love, female testing, and your role as a man. Stay sharp, because this gets deeper. Here's what makes the difference between obsession and indifference. Emotional leverage. It's not manipulation, it's awareness. Knowing how to create tension, release it, and pull her back in without begging or pleasing. Think of it like a dance. When you pull away at the right moment, she leans in. When you speak less, but with weight, she listens more. Most men collapse into full emotional exposure, thinking that's love, but women chase what they can't fully hold. Master emotional discipline, and you become unforgettable. You don't have to be rich or famous to be desired, you just need to be grounded. Grounded in your masculine identity, your mission, your silence. Women are magnetized by men who create emotional safety, not through words, but through energy. You walk into a room and she feels it, not because you're loud, but because you're anchored. You're not asking for validation, you're not performing, you're simply being. That's the type of man she thinks about long after the conversation ends. Be that man. The reason this is hard for most men? They confuse intensity with intimacy. They overshare, they vent, they spiral, thinking that if they show all their wounds, she'll love them more. But male vulnerability is not the same as emotional dumping. Vulnerability has to be paired with strength. You can cry, but only if your core is solid. She'll admire that. But if your sadness pulls her into chaos, she'll resent it. Emotional control is what allows your softness to be respected, not pitied. Don't mistake her comfort for commitment. A woman can love the way you treat her and still leave. Why? Because love without attraction feels like friendship. The moment she senses your frame control is lost, she feels the shift, deep down, even if she doesn't admit it. You're no longer the rock. You've become water. She craves masculine energy because it gives her polarity. Without it, she assumes the leadership role, and that kills attraction. She doesn't want to lead. She wants to surrender to a man who leads himself. Men often ask, how do I keep her interested long term? The answer isn't in flowers or gifts. It's in tension, not toxic tension. Sexual polarity, that teasing glance, that quiet confidence, that I see you, but I'm not moved by you energy. It's not aloofness, it's direction. A man with male purpose doesn't need to chase. He invites, he attracts. And when she feels that, when she knows you'd choose her but don't need her, that's when she leans in. That's when she starts investing deeply. Imagine you're dating someone new. Everything feels electric, but soon she begins pulling back. Not drastically, just small shifts. Less texting, shorter replies, delayed responses. You react. You send longer messages, try harder, ask what's wrong, and she retreats more. That's what happens when emotional validation becomes desperation. She doesn't want your panic, she wants your calm. Next time, instead of chasing, slow down. Breathe, wait, let her wonder. That pause says, I don't panic when I'm not chosen. And that confidence? That's rare. That's magnetic. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to shake. Women feel safe with men who can handle pressure, especially emotional pressure. You don't flinch when she's cold. You don't overcompensate when she's moody. You stay steady. That's Stoic mindset in action. Not coldness, but clarity. You're not chasing peace. You are the peace. She can rage, cry, test, and you remain unmoved, not detached, but centered. That's how a man keeps his power, not by controlling her, but by never losing control of himself. Here's what's almost never talked about. Respect comes before love. You can't love someone you don't respect. And women deep down feel the same. They may enjoy your company, but if they don't respect you, they'll slowly detach. Respect is earned in micro moments. When you say no and mean it, when you hold your opinion without argument, when you walk away from things that insult your values, that's when she feels your strength. Not through volume or dominance, but through quiet certainty. So how do you build that kind of strength? You start by setting boundaries, not as punishment, but as structure. Let her know what you tolerate and what you don't. If she crosses a line, address it with calm intensity. No yelling, no threats, just clarity. I don't accept that. Then detach. Let her process. That space is powerful. It shows you respect yourself enough to walk away. And that's when she feels the shift. Suddenly, she's the one chasing your approval, not the other way around. Remember, women don't test men to destroy them. They test to feel safe, to feel anchored. That's the paradox. The stronger your masculine presence, the less she has to test you. It's like a child testing a fence, not to break it, but to make sure it holds. If it does, she relaxes. If it wobbles, she pushes harder. So hold your line. Be kind but firm. Calm but unwavering. That quiet authority is what disarms her guard and earns her deepest trust. One of the biggest mistakes men make is mistaking silence for weakness. But strategic silence is a form of power. When a woman is emotional, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing. Just breathe. Hold space. Watch her calm herself without rescuing her. You're not dismissing her feelings. You're showing her that your center isn't fragile. That kind of energy, steady, grounded, unshaken, makes her feel more seen than any words ever could. Because you're not reacting, you're leading. That's where psychological triggers come in. Not hers, yours. You have to know what breaks your center. What phrases, behaviors, or patterns make you lose your grounding. Because if you don't manage your reactions, you become easy to manipulate. Women aren't evil, they're intuitive. If they feel your weak spots, they'll press, not out of cruelty, but curiosity. And once you react, they feel less safe. So map your triggers, study them, heal them. That work builds a man who doesn't break when tested. There's a moment in every relationship where things shift. Not dramatically, but subtly. She stops smiling at your jokes, stops touching you casually. And you feel it. That's when most men panic. But the man who understands female behavior knows this is where leadership begins. You don't beg, you adjust your energy, you realign your priorities, you go back to your mission. And slowly, the polarity returns. Not because you chased, but because you reestablished what made her want you in the first place, your masculine identity. And that leads to something most men never practice. Emotional discipline. Not stuffing your emotions down, but mastering them, knowing how to feel everything, and still choose wisely. When you speak, It's not impulsive, it's intentional. When you react, it's not explosive, it's measured. That level of control changes how she sees you. You become a source of stability, not stress. And in a world full of noise and chaos, that calm, grounded energy is what draws her in and keeps her loyal. You see, when a man embodies this kind of self-mastery, he becomes rare. Women don't just like him, they feel him. There's something about his stillness, his gaze, his posture. He doesn't rush. He doesn't explain. He just is. That's masculine energy at its peak. And here's the twist. He's not doing it to impress her. He's doing it because that's who he is now. That shift from performing to being is what separates boys from men. And that's when she starts asking herself, how do I keep him? But none of this works unless you start prioritizing your male purpose. Your mission has to come first. Not because women don't matter, but because without direction, you don't matter to them long term. They want a man who's going somewhere, not a man orbiting their moods. When you live with purpose, everything changes. Your tone, your timing, your decisions, they all align. And women feel that, deeply. That alignment creates attraction without effort. It's not about chasing, it's about becoming. And that changes the entire game. To be clear, this isn't about turning into a cold, emotionless machine. It's about choosing your responses like a man who owns his path. You can love deeply, you can care fiercely, but you never lose yourself. You hold your frame control, your self-worth, your identity, because once you give those away, the relationship becomes a trap, not a connection. So stay grounded. Let her storm, let her test, but never let her shake your center. That's how real attraction is built and kept. And if you're wondering where to begin, start simple. One habit, one boundary, one truth. Reclaim your mornings. Say no once today where you'd normally fold. Journal what makes you lose control. That's how it starts. Small shifts that restore your relationship power. Over time, those shifts become your identity. And that identity becomes the man you wish you were years ago. You don't need revenge. You don't need her back. You just need to remember who the hell you are. Let's keep going. So now the question is, what are you going to do with all this? Will you keep repeating the same emotional patterns, handing over your power in silence? Or will you start leading with masculine identity, owning your frame control, and showing up as a man who no longer negotiates his worth? Have you seen yourself in the mistakes we explored? Which one hit the hardest? Drop it in the comments. Don't hold back. Let's create a space where awareness turns into action. And if this message spoke to something deep in you, something that's been ignored, silenced, or forgotten, then let that be your sign. Leave this phrase in the comments. I'm reclaiming my power. Let the algorithm know you're not here to play small. Thank you, genuinely, for making it to the end. That already puts you ahead of most. Your time means something, and if you're here, it means you're done living on autopilot. If this content helped you in any way, like the video, share it with a brother who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next step in your growth. We're just getting started, and the journey ahead is yours to lead.